I'll start at this end. For those of you who are unaware of who some of these people are, this is Dan Yarrington of Game Salute. We have Christopher Kirkman of Dice 8B Games, one half of Dice 8B Games. Bryan Fischer, who is one half of Nevermore Games. And Porfirio, who is the only half of Ryder Games. I will let each one of them talk a minute about their story, and then we'll open up to questions, like we did last night. I think that'll be fun. Next start.
How's this from? So Game Salute supports independent publishing studios, like Nevermore Games, and Dice 8B Games, and Ryder. And we also have launched our own kind of publishing brand for design studios who just run design rooms, who really want to do all the publishing stuff that all these studios don't do. So that's what Game Salute does. We work with lots of different publishing studios and design studios. And we're based in New Hampshire, but we have folks all over the places for other staff.
Hello, good morning. We're joining Pancakes and Chris Kirkman, Dice 8B Games. We started out with my wife Sherilyn's game Carnival last year. Actually, wow, 1.5 years ago. On Kickstarter, and have kickstarted successfully 3 games since then. And of course, right now, currently, they're allowed to game Compounded is on Kickstarter. We passed funding yesterday morning as soon as Unpub started, so that was fantastic. So yeah, that was fantastic. So glad to be here. That's kind of our story. Unfortunately, Sherilyn couldn't be here. She's working back home, and so I'm keeping up the appearances here anyway. But having a good time.
Hey, good morning. Bryan Fischer. We are Nevermore Games. We're out of Richmond, Virginia. And we started off with Chicken Caesar. It was successful on Kickstarter. And Mars Meets Mechanics, also successful on Kickstarter. That's coming out early-ish this year. And yeah.
Hey, I'm Porfirio, and I'm published with Ryder Games. I've had 1 published game so far, and that's Unpub3 game called Time Going Down. Also was a successful Kickstarter November 2011. And working on Hostage Negotiator, which is grateful some of you have already tried out. Anyone else wants to try it, definitely come over. And currently looking for other designers to publish, so definitely hoping to try some of the games out here and see what you guys got. Yeah. So I guess we didn't do as good thank you John for the event as the designers. So let me take this moment to not only thank John, but also you guys. Like, this event doesn't happen without all the designers and more specifically the playtesters coming out. So just for all your support. Thanks for John for putting this together.
You're welcome. Much more that's good. I like that. It's morning. Yeah. You have been fed the pancakes. All right. What I'd like this panel to be about more specifically is these guys telling you or answering questions about what it is they're looking for in a game. You present a game to them, and the process that starts at that point. But it can go anywhere that you guys want to. This is really about getting information out to you from them, from a different place that you're used to. You get a chance to talk to these guys who are the people you really want to talk to, but get information from them instead of giving them information from you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I will open the floor to questions now. Take it from there.
I'll go first again. So there are times when I submit games to game publishers, and not necessarily any of you guys, but maybe some of you guys, and they never get back to me, ever. And I'm wondering, how long should I wait? Should I just give up, or what? If they don't get back to me, should I ping them again? Should I?
Okay, I'll start. So, I'm pretty small time. I don't get a ton of submissions. I do try to get back to all of them, but I can imagine getting to the point where it, isn't always possible to get to every submission. I think it's definitely, you're more within your rights to follow up after, a month or two if you haven't heard anything, and see, if they're looking at it, what the situation is. I mean, there's just some publishers out there they're not interested, they're not going to respond. I mean, that's unfortunately just how it is.
Yeah, so we did open submissions at the very beginning, and then after Kickstarter, Chicken Caesar, they started coming in really fast. So we got a bunch of them all at once. Ended up having to like close open submission because we literally have not gotten them all to the table yet. But I'm really, those people know that too. You know, I'm really open with them about it because, yeah, it's like, you know, we're small publishers, we have day jobs, and we just, you know, we're doing this out of passion and just love for the hobby. So, you know, in the end, there's definitely a lot of respect for designers that go out on a limb and send those games out, because that's, you know, you're trusting your baby to somebody else at that point, and you're taking a leap. So, you know, like it was mentioned last night, we started meeting with designers at conventions instead. We found that worked a lot better than just getting a bunch of submissions in the mail. Because one of the important things that you consider when you're looking to publish a game is, do I want to work with this designer? I mean, is this a you know, a really cool guy I want to work with, or a really cool girl I want to work with, and you know, that plays into it too.
I would say, well, for us, we don't really have an official submission policy. It's just that we've met you, or you happen to talk to us on Twitter or send us an email. Honestly, we have had so many since Viva Java. I mean, Carnival, we got quite a few after Carnival. But after Viva Java, we're inundated with tons of submissions. And we try to get back to a lot of them. Unfortunately, it's like, you know, with that many emails and people emailing to the site, it's just me and Sherilyn, and you know, now she's taking a backseat to do more ballet work. So it's tough, but you know, for other publishers, and I will say, as far as like our submission, I hate when I don't have the time to really respond to someone. But just like AJ was saying, it's perfectly your right to follow up. I would say wait about a month. And if you haven't heard anything from the game, just send an email saying, hey, I just want to see you take a look at the game, and just keep at it. You don't have to be one that's constantly like, you know, every 2 days, have you looked at it, have you looked at it? But just like with applying for a job, you need to be still firm and confident, but yet not overbearing as far as what you're trying to do, and just patiently. Now, if you haven't heard back from them after you've sent them like 4 or 5 emails over a 5-month span, just move on. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is, unfortunately. And the good thing about most of all of us is that we're connected through several different media, so you can also say, you know, like maybe 2 weeks after you send an email, if you see us on Facebook or Twitter, just say, hey, I sent you an email, how's it going, you know? And that's really kind of the way now that you've got multiple media types to get in touch with people. Just check in with like a quick, short little message form, and I think that's really the best way to go.
I'll provide a corollary to that, which is do not go the opposite way on social media. Do not say, I submitted my game to @DiceHateMe 4 months ago, and I have not heard back. Those guys suck. Like, that is the best way to make sure you never get any publisher to ever look at your games again. But we actually, because games was a little broader scope, because we work with so many studios, publishing studios, design studios, so we actually had to kind of proceduralize that submission process. And as we looked at it, like we do with each aspect of the industry, we said, well, what does the kind of person want? Like, what do you guys, the designers, expect? And as you heard yesterday, like, it is not uncommon for it to be 4 to 6 months or a couple of years for people to get back to you, and that's before you get submitted your game. Like, you might have just emailed them, and then they get back to you 3 months later and they say, hey, yeah, that sounds interesting, or no, we're not interested. So, from our perspective, lots of publishers, if they don't accept submissions, I would say don't submit things to them. Like, if you submit something to Fantasy Flight or whoever that doesn't have open submissions, that's not a surprise that they don't get back to you. There's a reason they don't have open submissions. But in our case, we just revamped our submissions policy, and so we said, we tell people, you know, we've hired people just to help with this, because last year we got 300 or 400 titles, and it was basically just me evaluating them. And I was doing the same thing. I was like, oh, I really want to review these and like get back to it. Maybe I'm not even playing them to start. I just want to give you some feedback of like, yeah, I don't think your concept for a game about ponies raping babies is really a good idea. You know, like, that's just not a good thing. But then at least you know, right? So we kind of nuggetized it, or we give you like, okay, yes, we received your submission, and then once we caught up on our queue of the 100 or 20 games over here, which was basically Jeremy's job when we brought them on, to go through and evaluate them, get them play tested, and all that stuff. Now we reopen submissions because we closed them for like that back half of the year. Now we reopen them, and now we'll get back to you within about a week probably, just to let you know we got your stuff, and then we'll tell you if we want to look at a prototype, then email it to us, then it's 4 to 6 weeks for evaluation. And if that seems too long, because we get a lot of people that are like, but I want to go on Kickstarter tomorrow. And it's like, then go ahead, like, then I can't help you. Like, I can't, I'm not sitting in my office waiting for your submissions to show up. So I think that's how we've addressed this, that we've tried. We've tried to put some resources to it because we can for a broader scope, but yeah, if you're just like, it's just me, like, I would just have to basically say no submissions. I just can't do it. So, and we are supplementing that with going to conventions in person, because you're right, you do want to kind of, in our case, we're evaluating the studio, we consider a studio, it's just one person designing it. So like, do we want to work with that person? Because you could have the best game, I have the best game ever. Well, if you're saying it in that tone, maybe I don't want to work with you, even if it's the next Dominion. If you just give me a dick about it, then like, I don't get paid enough. Nobody in this interview is paid enough to deal with that grief. So yeah, just be polite, you know, always be, respectful, and then just follow the guidelines that they have if they have any, and keep in touch with them as best you can.
Daniel, on guidance, what's your policy on sending a pitch to multiple publishers at the same time? You know, do you prefer an exclusive first review?
Little airlines gas bottles.
So I don't have any policy against that. You know, every publisher is different. You know, I don't want to be one, I'm way too small to try and like limit you to who you're going to publish. But two, I think that, you know, unless you're super huge, you know, one of the big guys, like if I was a designer, I would just kind of move on to the next publisher. So I think that would kind of hurt me in terms of kind of submissions.
I think when you're working with small independent publishers, it's in your best interest a lot of times to do like what Chris said, submit it and then follow up. And you can do that one publisher at a time, and I think that it's going to go better for you in general, because you can get some one-on-one time actually talking to that publisher and find out why they don't like your game or why they do. And heck, they're going to jump right on it, and then you're going to have a bunch of loose strings all over the place that you need to clean up. So I think when you're dealing with the smaller publishers, you have a luxury in some ways of going from one and then giving them some time, and then going to another and giving them some time doing that.
One thing, and I mentioned this on panels before, but it was mentioned slightly in the design discussion last night. When you're submitting multiple publishers or submitting multiple designs to a single publisher, some people prefer that shotgun approach, but I think you should be very worried about what your design is and what your product is, and try to find a rapport and relationship with a publisher that has that aesthetic. Like, you know, for instance, you know, with AJ, he put out If I'm Going Down, and it's a great game, but we would never do that game. It's not really like in our wheelhouse, our food. That was too early for those kind of words. But basically, it's like if you have a game that you feel like fits into a certain library, go for it. I mean, as far as like Game Salute, I mean, they're going to publish a lot of different types of games because they have that wider scope. However, for us, as I say, the games, we have a specific aesthetic of a game. And there are a lot of publishers out there, especially independent publishers, that will be like that. So you can do that shotgun approach. However, you also got to know, and if you're dealing with a lot of different publishers, and all of us, we don't care if you submit to all of us. We're not going to like, oh, my pride's hurt. You submitted to me, but then, you know, Bryan, you got a submission too. Well, I don't know about that. But you got to know it's a small industry too, and people are going to start comparing along the lines like, how's your communication with Daniel Solis? Oh, he's awesome. And then it's like, well, you know what? He's been a real turd to me on Twitter and email and everything like that. So be consistent in your communications, be professional in your communications, and then also be very wary of your game, your product, and who you're going to submit to. It'll save yourself a lot of time and grief as well.
I'd follow that up with be open if you are submitting to other publishers. Like if you send me something, you say, hey, I'd like you to look at this. And I'm also, just so you know, there are other publishers that have it under consideration. That's totally fine. What I don't want, from our perspective, just from a logistical standpoint, is if you submit it to me, like there are submissions form, like you send it to somebody else at the same time, no big deal. Like if I get back to you and I say, okay, I would like to get a copy, now I'm going to dedicate company resources to evaluating it and giving you feedback within 4 to 6 weeks. I would just ask for the courtesy that you, during that 4 to 6 weeks, do not either, one, change your game significantly, or two, submit it to somebody else. Because then what I don't want is, like, okay, I took the time to give you a deadline. That's why we now have deadlines, right? Because if you submit it and like, I never get back to you, then of course, like if I come back to you 6 months later and I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna shoot your game. You're like, oh, well, I already signed it with the AG or whatever. You're like, okay, yeah, I can understand that because I never got back to you. But if I say I'm taking it, then give me that time to do it, because I don't want to come back and either have you say, oh, yeah, I actually, all those problems that you guys spend that time to play test and find out that there are problems, I already fixed those. Like, then why did you submit it to me? Why didn't you just fix it before you submitted it to me? Or if I already signed it over here, well then, effectively you just wasted my time. And so that's kind of our de facto policy now, that we actually have those guidelines. That, yeah, when you're doing open submissions and kind of testing the water, seeing who's interested, that's fine. But especially if a company requests a prototype, I would try and restrict that down to them. And I would try to get them to give you some sort of timeline. Like, would you be able to get me initial impressions within 2 months or whatever? You know, it doesn't have to be unreasonable, but just so you know. Because that's what most people, it's not the time that, like, oh, it took 2 months for this publisher to evaluate it. It's that they don't know. It's the unknowing factor. So that's kind of our policy on that. And we do accept more submissions, obviously, because we want, that's our whole model, is studio support. So like, I want to be able to support you as a studio. And that's a problem I see in the industry as a whole, is that designers spend a lot of time and effort shopping things around. That's a lot of administrative time that you have to spend. And what you're asking, keep in mind what you're asking for when you ask a publisher to look at your game. You're asking them for money, effectively. You're asking them for their money, their time, and their energy. Those are all 3 very precious resources. So you make sure that you have a quality thing that you can't think of any way to make this better until you submit it to them, right? That's why you're submitting it to them. And that's respectful of their resources and their time.
Yeah. One thing, and I guess it's always been around, but I've been hearing it more lately, is designers wanting to trademark their games before sending it to a publisher as stealing my idea, so now I protected it. So, number one, is that as crazy as it sounds? Number two, if someone submits a trademark game to you, does that make you less reluctant to back it or to help it or not?
I will address that. You cannot trademark your game. You can trademark your name, but you cannot trademark your game. Submitting to publishers is scary, and submitting your ideas to someone is scary. The best way that you can protect your game from someone stealing it is exactly what you're doing here. You're opening it up and showing it to everybody. Because the more people talk about it and the more people have seen your game, all of a sudden Joe Blow comes off that you've already submitted it to and comes up with it. He starts developing a game, getting ready for Kickstarters, sharing buzz. Everybody who's here goes, hey, didn't there have a game like that at Unpub like 2 years ago? He's probably ever put Unpub Mini, and now he's at Unpub3 talking about it, and now all of a sudden this guy's doing it. Well, that's where you get your protection, honestly. Trademark law is very sticky. Trademark law is very, well, obviously Dan can talk about this here in a second, but I'm probably not telling you a lot what you don't know, but what I'm saying is that, for instance, you guys all know the analogy of Monopoly. Monopoly's artwork and name is trademarked. Its rules are not. There are no rules against you taking Monopoly and creating your own version of Monopoly. You just simply can't call it Monopoly. You can't use the artwork. Obviously, we've seen several Monopoly clones pop up on Kickstarter since that's happened, and you haven't seen Hasbro sending out a cease and desist letter, because they can't. It's impossible. So you can trademark your name, that's fine. If you've done artwork and graphic design for that game, you can actually, again, it's costly, and you submit a trademark and get those types of things taken care of. But for the most part, doing exactly what you're doing here, sharing it with people, not being like paranoid, making people sign cease and desist letters, because someone's still going to see that. They're going to know your idea. You're doing exactly what you should here to protect yourself. And as far as like someone submitting that to a publisher and saying like, I'm going to show you my design, but you can't show it to anybody else. Well, that's crazy. I mean, I can't just take something and be insular with it. Like, I'm going to ask somebody else's opinion. Like, hey, you know, what's that, Bryan, have you played this game? I mean, where we talk, you know, so I'm like, what's your opinion of this? You know, you'll ask me the same thing. And we're like, we'll be honest with each other, especially because if we're gonna help each other, especially in independence, it's like, you know what, I saw this game, I thought it was good, but you know what, you probably would like it better. Why don't you take a look at it? So that's really the best way you can do it.
So 2 things. You automatically copyrighted your game when you post it anywhere and create it. That's automatic, it's free. You can officially register it, but in the days of the internet, you effectively have if you put it online. Trademark is a waste of money and time before you've submitted it, because chances are the name and theming and all that stuff may change during development. So a total waste of money, and it costs you about $1,500 to get trademark unless you're doing it yourself, and then it's a little less. Patenting, a la the you can't tap cards, because Wizards has a patent on that, is kind of a joke from a legal perspective, but it doesn't matter, because if Hasbro wants to sue you, they don't need grounds. Like the fact that you would lose, that they would lose in court, doesn't matter because they have way more money than you. That's how the legal system works. So it's kind of worthless for you to do those things. If you automatically copyrighted it, as long as you're sharing it publicly, then you've got a little bit of kind of market protection. The corollary to that is that you do see games, this comes up often, where somebody has a game out that like Fantasy Flight never knew anything about, they never saw, they're just flat, they have a closed submission policy, and they're not paying attention, they're like sitting on Board Game Geek going, oh, does anybody have any good ideas they can steal? They've got a million ideas of their own to make. So you will see similar ideas, you just see that in lots of industries. So like if a cooperative tile-laying space exploration game on the space station shows up, Jay's not going to be like, oh my god, this stole my idea, you know, because chances are they had that idea. And really, from our perspective, from the publishing side of things, as Power by Game Salute, the idea is not worth anything to us. Because if we have to invest, you say, I've got a great idea for a game, it's a zombie game, it's 1 to 5 players, it's cooperative. And you die, you get eaten by some things. And I'm like, awesome, where are the rules? Because the design and development is what's worth money. That's what's worth time. And it's really, there's not enough money in the industry. It's not worth that much. It's way cheaper for me to just give you some money for having done that work. If I wanted to do that myself, we do have projects that we do it under our own system. If we do that, we consider ourselves a studio. Like, I design a game, I get a royalty from my own company for doing the design and development of the game. Because that's the system that makes sense. So it's just not, there's not enough money in it, really. Like people will go, oh, if you design Ticket to Ride, well, Ticket to Ride is not a success because just of its design. Like, yes, it's a great design, but it's because of a combination of marketing, presentation, all those different things. And the publisher adds a lot of those in. So if you want to, I always tell people, like, if you want to do the publishing, or if you are a publishing studio, then yeah, sure, feel free to trademark your game. But there's a lot of games that are huge games. They're not trademarked.
Breath, man. Breath, man.
Take a breath. Oh yeah, I talk a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, you don't, and there's also automatic trademark, like there's the big R registered trademark, that's what costs you money. You can put the TM on pretty much anything if you put it up, because it's a working trademark and that costs you nothing. But it also is kind of a sign that like, hey, if I put, like, we have our game share program in Myriad, and we would always put like game share TM. And like, that's okay if you do it like once, but if like you do a press release that lists your game, like, oh yes, everywhere in the rules that list the name of your game, Arsenal's Mechanics TM, 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 TM. That's why you see at the end of the rules, they'll say, Arsenal's Mechanics and the Nevermore Games logo are trademarks of, you know, Nevermore Games, because it's just kind of annoying to be like, yes, this is my idea. Like, yes, I know it's your idea. I'll talk to you about it.
Can I make a follow-up on that? Don't put an R in a circle unless you have registered your game. You can get in legal trouble for that.
Yeah, the USPTO is not a fan of that. And you can easily check that. You go to uspto.gov and you do a trademark search. That's where all the registered trademark searches are. So that's all public and very easily accessible. It's a good idea to check that too, because if you come up with a game called something, right, and we just went through this with Story Realms, which there was no game called Story Realms, but some website up in Canada that did interactive fiction said, oh, we have storyrealm.com, and then they saw that we did a lot of, we raised a lot of money on Kickstarter, and they said, oh, we'll add a game section to our website, and then we'll say that, yes, because they did have registered trademarks, and they said, well, that'll cover that. And so effectively we just changed the name. We offered to kind of reconcile with them, but realistically you will have those concerns. And again, it doesn't really impact the game. Like, we didn't update, we're like, yep, it's called Storm Hollow now. Same game. And people are like, cool, sounds like a great game. It doesn't change the game at all, it just changes your brand name.
So I'm going to say this as nice as I possibly can. I mean, no disrespect to anyone. No one wants to steal your game. Like, of all the industries you could steal an idea, this has to be at the very bottom or near the bottom of the list. Because I can tell you, no one up here is getting rich. Very few designers are getting rich. And even if you think you have the best idea, it's not proven until the market proves it. I mean, you could have found out about Dominion and, at the point where it's being tested, you never know how successful it's actually going to be. And Dan makes a great point as well, is, a big part of how successful a game is the marketing, the money that's put behind it. So the best thing you can do is what you're doing now, which is get your game in front of as many people as possible. Get feedback, make the game as best you can. Even if someone saw your game here today and was like, I'm gonna steal that, you're months ahead, maybe years ahead of where they would be if they try to take what you have and go do something with it. So, when people first come in and they're doing their first design, almost everyone is like, oh my God, someone's gonna try to steal this, I gotta protect it. Do it, just concentrate on making your game the best it can be, and don't worry about that other stuff.
I just want to put out there that if I had given into that fear that if someone's going to steal my idea, this wouldn't happen. So you got to get over that, because great things happen when you just understand that nobody's going to steal what you want, what you got. They want to work with you to make it better. So just,
Well, I think it's great that you guys are here this weekend, and thank you for taking the time to do this. A question about Kickstarter. You guys have this is kind of a new thing, Kickstarter, and it's been successful for you guys. Do you have any goals at a point to not use Kickstarter, to get to a place where you're able to say, we've got this much money, so now we can finally put Kickstarter aside, or do you continue to look at Kickstarter as this is it, we're going to be with it until it implodes or crashes?
The can of worms has been opened.
I think, okay, so I'll return that with a question. Is there a better marketing engine on the face of the planet right now than Kickstarter? I mean, I get to tell you about my stuff in a really engaging way with lots of information. You get to talk back to me. You get to make an informed decision on what you want to get. You get to choose the level, how much you want to get into it. If you want to get a bunch of extra crap for it because you're really excited, you get to make comments. You get to see updates, you get email updates. All that from Kickstarter? No, I don't have a plan to get off Kickstarter anytime soon. How much do you actually need to pull from Kickstarter financially is something behind the scenes that you can count on less. But just the community involvement, the engagement, what it does for you social networking wise, what it does for you marketing wise, in addition to advertisements and partnerships with elsewhere on other sites. If I run ads on Dice 18, which we do every single time with Kickstarter, that kind of thing, all that really supports this huge hub, this social marketing hub that is Kickstarter. So no, I think Kickstarter is great, and we rely on it financially more now than we will. And that's the plan, is to rely on it a lot less. But, having the ability for the community to say, we don't like this aspect of the game, or just throw the rule book out there early and have it trashed or applauded, that's really helpful, because we do this type of thing. But, we need more of that too. So I think it's a great vehicle.
Yeah, ditto. But I will say this, do I wish that we could just operate without Kickstarter? Honestly, yes, sometimes I do, simply because it is a lot of work. And keeping up with the social hub and making sure you're taking care of your backers and making sure that they know that they're appreciated, which they are 150%. But yeah, there's no, if I could take all of that I get from Kickstarter and just put it on Dice 18, where I can control all of it, and everybody will come and talk and give feedback, and we can all work on something together, that would be fantastic. But I don't have the time to put into that. I don't have the marketing push that Kickstarter has. I don't have that social hub. So right now, it's a necessary part of the culture and the atmosphere of our hobby and other hobbies and venues as well. It just so happens that board games have fit really well into the Kickstarter overview. And you do have the detractors. The unfortunate part of Kickstarter, of course, is that if you do kickstart your own, you've got to also be on BGG, and then you're going to have people saying, why are you kickstarting this game? You made so much money on your last game. Why don't you have enough to publish by yourself? Why can't you be a real publisher and not just rely on Kickstarter? And I'm like, you have to. I used to get into those forums and start replying, and then I realized I'm like, you can't educate everybody. You can't make them realize why Kickstarter is important and why the backers and support of that community and people who love that community and love what you're doing are important. There's always going to be those detractors that make you just tired and want to not do Kickstarter. But the benefits and the joys behind it, and especially for a business model, business sense, but not only that, but most of the community, Kickstarter is well worth it. And so, yeah, I mean, there are no plans for us really to go off Kickstarter. Obviously, we want to rely less and less on that support to keep the bottom line healthy, but we've built it into our business plan enough that we can launch a game at a certain time, know when that income can come in, hopefully if it's successfully funded, and then we can use that to support other projects we're working on, marketing, art development, things like that. So it becomes a long-term strategy and we plan to do that. And we support Kickstarter now.
Wow, it's a big topic. So there are a lot of costs to Kickstarter, as Chris pointed out, right? And that's what's kind of frustrating about it, is that we work with a lot of different studios that use Kickstarter, and people look at Kickstarter and they say, you raised more money than your goal, you were successful, and you were financially successful. And as you know, behind the scenes, that may not always be the case. And actually what we found, because we have access to these things, because we're talking to these publishers, because we've got shipping on your game, right? And then people are like, oh, I don't have enough money to pay for the shipping to people. Like, those are real concerns. And they might have overfunded. They might have overfunded 700%. We had somebody that set a goal at like $4,000 or $5,000, like very low. They raised $30,000, and at the end of the day, a year later, when they had paid for all the expenses, they were $30,000 in debt, because they had not managed the expectations properly. That's the danger of Kickstarter. So it's a platform. It's not a magical genie that gives you money. And that's, we use Kickstarter. We're actually refining how we use Kickstarter. We want to kickstart smarter and not more necessarily. People look at it, oh my God, you run so many projects. Well, yeah, because we're working with lots of different studios. It's not like we're just churning out stuff. We're effectively enabling lots of different studios to do stuff. And that's why Kickstarter is useful. There are a lot of things on Kickstarter that don't really function well for the industry. Like, they really are stressing against, we don't want it to be a store, which is, board games kind of go the other way. We want it to be a store because we want you to add on this and this and this, and you just have to deal with that stuff. But the idea of crowdfunding, the interaction with the crowd, yeah, you want to do that anyway. Like, any good company should be doing that. It's just in this case, you're doing R&D. You're doing marketing and R&D beforehand. And so if you manage that properly, which is a big caveat, that I would attest that most Kickstarters lose money. Most successful Kickstarters lose money at this point. So we have to, as an industry, get people to be smarter about not losing money, about thinking, just ignoring costs. Like, okay, you forgot about incoming shipping from the factory, or like you forgot about outgoing shipping. Those are the two big things. But like, you also forgot that you had to pay your artist. We had one guy that had a campaign that it was, he got a quote from the printer and they said it would be 2 months to print it. Yes, it is 2 months to print it. It's then 30 or 45 days to ship it. It's then 15 days for customs. It's then all these different times. So he put like, it ended in June, he put like it would be out in August. He didn't have the art finished. And the artist was doing 174 pieces of art. And he got a quote from the artist. And then he said, okay, it's going to be out in August. And we said, how long is that going to take to do the art? And the art will be done in March. Like the following March, after the August. So by the time it actually comes out, if it's a 6-month delivery window after that, for it to get it from China, that's going to be a year and change later. And so that's the epidemic that I see on Kickstarter now. And the smart publishers that have experience doing it will roll those kinks out, right? Because then they know what the production timelines are. So you'll be able to trust those people more has the kind of experience. And they'll usually say that in the risks and challenges. That compounded risks and challenges says, hey, look, we're not going to bullshit you. Like, stuff might happen. We might have to go back and forth 6 times on color proofs, and then it might not turn out perfectly. But you're being upfront about that. And that's what you sign up for when you kickstart something. The evolution of Kickstarter, what I see right now is that backers are treating it like a store. As much as Kickstarter says we're not a store, people come to me all the time, can I get a refund? What do you mean a refund? You pledged your support for this project. Well, my car payment came due. This is like a month after the campaign. Like, this isn't after it was overdue or anything. This is just like, well, I want my money back. Like, I can get a refund, right? It's like a store. And that's something that they are really pressing against, but it is the perception. So Kickstarter will continue to evolve, smart publishers will continue to evolve with it, but the concepts, the core concepts of interacting with the community and all that stuff are going to remain a part of that for a long time. And if they say, oh, you're not a real publisher, then say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize Days of Wonder was not a real publisher. Because they are Small World 2, I'm on Kickstarter right now. Like, oh, that's a digital project. No, there's a deluxe version of Small World, the game, that is that. So that is going to go away like that, sort of like, oh, the ghettoization of Kickstarter. Like, yeah, you're just doing that because you're indie. So.
So my approach is a little different. I actually would love at some point to be able to be self-sustaining and not have to use Kickstarter. I think that, one, it's kind of validation that you are able to stand on your own and succeed as a company. But two, I mean, there's no guarantee Kickstarter will be here tomorrow. U.S. government at any time could, put some crazy law in that either makes the model, unsustainable, not profitable, or just shut it. I mean, anytime there's a lot of money, they're gonna, probably gonna try to get their hands on it somehow. Or who knows what happens? I mean, so there's no guarantee, but yeah, I mean, it's like I said, a great vehicle. It's basically a business person's dream from a cash flow perspective. Allowing businesses to have that capital up front is huge. I will say publishing is a major roller coaster. So the best analogy I can think for you guys is imagine you're designing your entire game up front here. There's monitors down on it, and everyone out there is giving you feedback as you're doing it. Like, how crappy would your game be, right? Like, this is what publishing on Kickstarter is, because every single project, something's gonna go wrong. It's gonna be delayed, something happens with the printing, and you have to communicate, you have to be open with everyone out there, otherwise, backers start to get pissed off, your reputation starts to get tarnished. If you're not using Kickstarter, you can do all that stuff in the background, no one ever has to know about it, like, you deal with them, you eventually get the game out, and, how many big publishers put dates out and hit the date? Not very many. Most of them just say, hey, this is coming fall, 2013. They have a 3-month window. If they have to delay 1 quarter, not
Fancy flight.
Yeah, they actually stopped doing that, right? Because now they're just like, they don't actually put a date out. They're like, it's coming at some point. And then when it's on the boat, then they say, it's on the boat. It'll probably be here in like a month or 2. And that's it, because that's as precise as you can get. And people are like, what day is it going to be there? There's so many variables. Nobody can tell you that. So the best we can do is say, some point very far in the future, and then hope to deliver early. That's basically what we want to say.
I'm going to ask a question to you guys out here. How many of you designers out there are actually considering taking your game to Kickstarter right now? Raise your hand, so we can see them right here. Is that a good idea for them?
It depends.
Tell them why it depends.
So it goes back to what I was just saying. Publishing is a ton of work. So if you're willing to take the design after you're done, run the Kickstarter, which is a ton of work, as Chris has already mentioned. Then after that, you get to jump up and down for 5 seconds, and then you've got way more work to do than you have. I mean, honestly, guys, I started designing first, and I was like, man, it's crap. Designers should get way more royalties than they get. It's crazy. Well, now having published the game, I completely understand why the model, or why the rates are what they are. Because I'm telling you, it is insane amount of work to do to get a game produced and get it, a quality product out there.
I don't know the last time I got to start really designing a game. Publishing is a beast, and if you've done it before, or if you're ready for it, that's something you want to do. I mean, chase your dream. That's why we're all here, right? I mean, we're here to chase some type of dream or passion or something. So, do it if you want, but just be informed. It is a lot of work. And fail on Kickstarter because you didn't do the million other things that you have to do. And I'm talking every day, hours a day. A campaign on Kickstarter is kind of like a political campaign. It runs for 30 days plus or whatever, and you are rocking it every single day. You have to be on top of it. You have to plan out stuff. You have to, Twitter, Facebook, BGG. You're on, BGG. You're on everything. I mean, there's just crazy. And you got to be on top of all that. So it's, it's a really big roller coaster that, has a lot of corkscrews in it. And then afterwards, yeah, it doesn't get any easier and it doesn't slow down. Printing is fun because you get to see some stuff and write stuff every once in a while. And, I get to look at this proof. And, until it's not right, and then it becomes its own hell. And then shipping and everything. Oh my gosh. I mean, Game Salute, I don't know what they're chaining people in the warehouse. I don't know what they're doing out there. It's crazy. I mean, shipping is just nuts. And even if you have a fulfillment company taking care of your shipping, trust me, you're not off the hook. It's emails every day, it's tweets every day, it's customer service. A lot of people don't realize that. If you publish your own game, you're handling a lot of the customer service. I mean, Game Salute for Chicken Caesar, Game Salute gets some of our customer service, they get a lot of it. We still get a lot, and we still handle it, And good publishers are, they want to talk to their customers, they want to talk to their fans. It's a lot of work, so just keep that in mind.
These guys have probably covered just about everything, but remember, if you do want to put your game out there, remember the hidden costs, remember the hidden agendas, but missions if you have to be on, the million little things you have to look after. Remember that you're going to have to put a little more money aside for your medical insurance to take care of the ulcers when you get through dealing with everything that you missed on that list. Be prepared if you can put it on Kickstarter, not only for the Kickstarter experience, remember that it is a marathon and not a sprint. You have to make sure you have enough energy reserves to make it through all of it. Make sure you got that time set right. We did 45 days for Carnival. It was the most grueling 45 days ever. And we keep dialing it back. Now we did 30 days for Compounded. And honestly, I wish we could end it like in 3 days and be kind of out of there. But you got to give people time to discover the project and dedicate to listening to people and in the Kickstarter experience. But also be prepared when you're through with Kickstarter and you get through with all this other stuff. Then once you actually have this game in your hand, now you have to figure out what am I going to do with it after that. Because just because you put it on Kickstarter doesn't necessarily mean that it's a success and I'm done. Okay, you got out to a bunch of people, but now you have, if you've done your job right, you've got 3,000 copies of this thing, which you've already sold, hopefully, over 400 to 500 of them, but you still got 75% of your load of this. Then you got to think about, are you going to warehouse it somewhere? You know, put it in your bedroom, or you're going to sleep on top of boxes? I mean, are you going to ship them out yourself? Don't do that. Do not do that. Now, unless if you sell 50 copies and you're happy with that, okay, sure, ship those things out yourself. But probably send it to this guy, or I'm not going to advertise with Game Salute. Look for other distributors too. Get comparison. But don't ship yourself. All these other things. Be prepared for that. Same thing these guys are saying.
And basically, like, if people come to us and like, we want to ship our own Kickstarter, I'm like, thank you, right? We don't do it because it's fun. We do it because it needs to be done, right? Somebody has to do it. And I'm amazed how many people, even before Kickstarter, people will be like, yeah, I need this game. I have 2,500 copies. Like, whoa, where are you selling them? Oh, through our website. How's that going? Like, is it going well? Because everybody thinks, especially with Kickstarter, this is the big danger. People see like there's all this interest. 1,000 people back to my game, right? And clearly that's only like a quarter of the interest that will happen in the first month that it releases. So as soon as it arrives at the warehouse, the other 4,000 copies or whatever I printed are going to sell out. They're like, no, it's not. It's not a magic genie. It's like it's just part of the process. It just happens that because Kickstarter allows you to do those pre-sales, that happens earlier on in the cycle, and so people get like kind of hopped up on the high of Kickstarter, and then they go, oh, there's all this work to do. or they expect there's some magic solution to shipping or sales or customer service or anything. Like, oh yeah, people notice they read our thing, they're like, oh yeah, you guys handle customer service. Well, like as Bryan pointed out, yeah, but people are contacting you and me. Like they'll blame me for all the mistakes because they like you, they don't want to blame you. But they're still going to contact you because you're cool, you're the designer, you're the publisher, they want to talk to you. And so you just have to be prepared for that. And so that's what we try to break down our new submissions page, like what exactly you do. Even that doesn't really get to it because we list off, here's all the things you pay for and here's all the things you do. People are just like, oh, that's just a list of words, that sounds easy. Like I handle the printing. Like, whoa, that is not one sentence. That is like months of your life that you lose to doing it. That's assuming that you're doing it right. And so there's a lot to that. So if you want to be a publisher, we just try to make sure, because we offer support for both, and we say, we just want to make sure that you really want to be a publisher. Because a lot of people think they want to be a publisher. Every gamer wants to be a designer, and then every designer wants to be a publisher. And then every publisher wants to be a distributor. That's a separate discussion. So, because there's always people that are like, I can do this part better, I can do that part better. And realistically, there are reasons that those things exist. Like, yes, there might be something you could do better at publishing, or you could do better at this. Can you do everything? Is anybody willing to stand up right now and say that they're the best at everything? Because if not, you're going to need some help. Whether it's from other people within your publishing company, whether it's from other allies, like you've got to do that. You know, if you're setting out on the quest for the One Ring, you don't go by yourself, right? You bring Sam along, or you bring a whole fellowship. That's what you need to do. So.